All right, let's take a look at a little bit of a long-range analysis and also some of the meteorology that goes into this type of a forecast. Hello, I'm meteorologist Brian Ivy here with you from NeoWeather. We've had a decent amount of rain in spots over the last week. The upper Midwest, far upper Midwest and northern plains. And then we've had a couple sections across the middle portion of the country as well. But these have been generally in the form of very hit and miss. You've seen some trends where we've had some very impressive amounts of moisture next to areas that have been kind of dry, and that's kind of been what we've been seeing. Plenty of rain across portions of Illinois and Indiana, especially east central portions of Illinois over the last week, so that's helping out. Some of these are in drought areas, so that's good news when it comes to the soil moisture, but it's been very dry across New England. That's been the trend for a long time, and that's what we really want to look at, is what are those trends over the course of months when we really see those deficits with major soil moisture issues and also with drought conditions. Very, very dry across the Four Corners and western Texas. That one little area in Iowa has been significantly dry. Just rain's like, no, we're not coming there, okay? And then we've been dry across portions of northwestern Ohio and eastern Michigan over a long trend as well. And then, of course, into areas of New England. So overall, since a few years to several years, it's been one of the biggest areas of widespread abnormally dry to moderate drought conditions across the United States. It doesn't mean all hope is lost or anything, but look at that back in towards like New Mexico and Arizona, Colorado, northern Texas, significant drought conditions, and then hit and miss into the wheat and corn belts at times, especially there in Indiana into western Ohio, northern Ohio. You guys have gotten really dry over the last few weeks or so, and then New England has been consistent dry trends, mainly due to the very warm part of summer where we had some good ridging in place as well. So pretty wide scale. We want to look more at the recent effects to the crop root structure. This works for turf grass management, but especially your corn crops, soybeans, other things like that. It's been plenty wet across portions of eastern PA and across New York City and New Jersey. It's been damp across portions of Wisconsin. The drying areas are your Pittsburgh, your State College area, Columbus, Toledo, Cincinnati, back into portions of Missouri. That's been where over the last little bit it's been just too significantly dry, so it's not so much even about the long-term trends. It's just really been hurting some of the needed moisture for growth. We have seen some of those hit and miss rains, so it has been good in some spots. You can literally travel 30-40 miles away or less and see some dramatically different conditions. Now, how are things going to change over the course of the next several days and couple weeks? Well, you have this big area of high pressure dominating across the middle portion of the nation and across much of the east in terms of a big heat ridge. So a little bit of big heat, but then we're going to see that little bit weaken and slide back towards the west. And as that does that, we're going to have a little bit of a more northwesterly flow aloft and a little bit more in the way of energy patterns and fronts and activity sliding into portions of the Great Lakes in the Ohio Valley, even the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. So that should help out a little bit there where that ridge really bakes across the Four Corners, which isn't good news over and across that area. You can see some of those impressive temperatures there across the west, while some greens and some of those lighter oranges and whatnot make their way in across the east. And that's good news. That's cooler temperatures, more average for this time of year for sure. So a little bit of a change in regards to that. That should allow for a little bit more precipitation. But if this ridge slides all the way back towards the west coast, we'll likely see another ridge develop across portions of the east and allow for decent heating. Some of the look for general precipitation trends. This is not specifics, but you can see there are systems at play. There's actual lows plus your hit and miss. Daytime convection that will blow up your regular thunderstorm activity. There's tropical chances as well. Of course, you have the one making landfall in Texas, then you have Galanzo that could impact, and then there should be a more potent string of potential tropics coming up here over the next several weeks. August should start to get pretty active there. So you can definitely see it's not going to be an extremely dry pattern, but that doesn't mean everybody gets involved. So Canadian model on the left, European model in the middle, GFS American model. So the ECMWF has not been the world's best with precipitation trends over the course of the last few months. Canadian's been pretty decent. The GFS has actually been pretty good. Congrats, GFS. You're not always one of the better ones out there. But you could say over the next few days or so, going through the weekend into early portions of the week, not a ton of rain. We do have that high pressure in store, except for the tropical regions and down south. But then once we go into early August, after that, we're looking at a lot more in the way of rainfall. I mean, some of these models have big areas where we're starting to see those very high precip anomalies, where it could be few inches or more, especially if there are tropical impacts. The Canadian has this, the GFS American model has this in spots. You can see it's not all in the same area, but if you look above me here, you can definitely see that's some widespread decent moisture. And then over there where the Canadian model is also suggesting something pretty similar. Otherwise hit and miss. I don't think we're going to have a major concern for areas of very dry weather, but some of them do have at least spots where they have a little bit in the way of pretty dry anomalies. It's just been inconsistent, so it's not something that we can really take to the bank at this point. I think overall we're not going to see a major drought anywhere across the east. I think there's going to be enough chances. It's really out west where that concern is still going to be pretty potent. So it's just going to be a little bit depending on exactly where those tropical systems form. And as good as we are as meteorologists and the science, there's no way to exactly predict a week and a half, 3 weeks, 4 weeks out where you're going to have the best tropical risk. I'm not going to spend too much time on this specific graphic. This is a few different kind of anomalies and looks to the overall forecast pattern from the JAMSTEC, or the JMA. That's the Japanese model. So over the next several days or so, we'll probably see a little bit of that backeting of the ridge to the west. That will allow for some cooler anomalies across portions of the east with that precipitation trend. So that's good backing from some of the other modeling. And then we definitely have a trend kind of in the Pacific Ocean and in the tropical activity with what's known as the Madden-Julian oscillation plus angular atmospheric momentum. That's all going to trend more towards your typical La Nina type conditions. So we're going to get a couple breaks off and on most likely in August. And this model is the coolest, the CFS. It shows that ridge back far enough west where that cold air is going to be across the middle of the country and then a little bit across the east, but then we'll get that expansion of much more warmer air across the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley. Look at that. Much warmer trends west and east with the cooler trends right across the middle portion of the nation. I think this model's too cool. It's cooler than other modeling. It's cooler than just the persistent trends of much more in the way of warmth and cool. But where it has the areas of cool and where it has the areas of heat, plus kind of the timeline of when you're going to see warmth, when you're going to see cool in August, I'm thinking that's a pretty good idea. Thanks guys so much for watching. Really appreciate it. I hope you have a great day, and I hope you found this valuable. Trust in NeoWeather, and we appreciate you.